Hello and welcome again to my channel. Um, I have received some really wonderful comments from people about my first video, and I'm really, really grateful to hear those because it's good for me to know if what I'm doing is actually useful, and really glad to know that it is. So I've been thinking about lots of things to bring to the next videos, and it's funny. So many came to mind that I just wasn't sure even where to start. But the one I'm going with is something I've been thinking about for actually quite a long time, not to, talk about with others, but just a thought. I'm an introvert, and I cannot stand small talk. It just drives me crazy. And I've heard so many people say the same thing, you know, but we kind of have to have a little small talk, because sometimes you're literally just passing somebody in an elevator, or um any number of things. A neighbor walks by and you just want to say a quick hello, but you're not going to stop and have a conversation. So small talk is everywhere. And the one that I think about the most is the weather. How so many people just talk about the weather, right? And um, I had this insight a bunch of years ago that, weather is a common experience, right? So if you're in an elevator with somebody, or in a cab, or in just on the street, or wherever, right? We're all experiencing the weather on some level somehow. And to start saying, well, oh man, it's so gorgeous out today, or oh, the rain, and do you know there's more rain coming? It used to drive me so crazy. I'm like, yeah, okay, the weather, sure. But I realized that talking about the weather is a way to jump right into a common experience. And, we're in this elevator together, we're on the same planet together, we're in the same city together. And it's a way to instantly kind of jump right in and talk about something we're both living, which actually is quite deep. The other thing about that is that it's a way to read the room. So if you are in that elevator, I don't know why I keep thinking about elevators, probably because I lived in an elevator building for something like 12 years, 17 years, a lot of years. you know, and you say to somebody, um, oh, it's gorgeous out, right? And they go, oh my God, I have been dying for spring, and here it is. And you're getting so much information about that person's inner experience and their experience with you in that tiny space, big space, whatever. On the other hand, you might say, oh man, spring is so beautiful. And they're like on their phone, and they go, yeah, that's a lot of information. They're saying, I don't really want to engage. I'm not up to social interaction. Maybe I'm not feeling great, maybe whatever, right? And so we say something about the weather because it is our common experience. And at the same time, it's just kind of like something to say so that you can read the room. So I've had those insights for a while, and they really actually helped me have that sense of, okay, this isn't stupid. It has a reason. There is rhyme and reason. It's not just like a random thing to talk about. And okay, so and then the other day I was in my garden, and it's right around the time when I'm watching the weather to see when it's safe to plant my seedlings out in the ground in the garden. And I tell you, I have been obsessed with the 48-hour hourly forecasts and the 10-day forecast. I can't even tell you. 30 times a day I look at it. I'm like, oh, is it going to be above 45 degrees? Can I plant tomatoes yet? Obsessed, kind of in a funny way. I mean, it doesn't cause me stress. I think it's funny. But it's also important because I have been growing some of my seedlings since the end of March. It's been 2 months of careful tending and watering and fertilizing and putting things into larger pots. And I mean, it's a lot of work. So if I screw this up, I'm going to kill a bunch of those, if I plant them out too early and they get stunted because it drops into the 40s. So being obsessed with the weather makes absolute sense for me. And I just had a moment of insight about why we talk about the weather, because, our life indoors with controlled temperatures and thermostats is fairly recent in our history. And before that, I mean, I came to this country when I was 11. I didn't know what an air conditioner was. I'm from Kyrgyzstan. We didn't, in the hot summer days, we had a bucket of water and a sheet, and you would dip the sheet in, like a sheet you cover yourself with. And, you dip the sheet in the water, wring it out, cover yourself up with it, and have a fan blowing. And that cooled you down. And when you woke up in the middle of the night all sweaty, it's because your sheet got hot and you did it all over again. So it's fairly recent, even for the wealthiest people, of which I am definitely not. But it is fairly recent that we have these controlled temperatures, and 100 years ago, 50 years ago, right? It wasn't so easy, and the weather actually affected people so much more. So it was a common experience also of discomfort and suffering. And so then those pleasant days of spring were that much more prized and precious and beautiful and welcomed and talked about, and then you go further back when you're living in, not in a nice building or house with walls and windows, and screens on the windows, and, but you're living in, maybe wood houses or what have you. And, weather used to be at the level of survival, even if it wasn't, tornadoes or monsoons or anything like that, although that too, but it impacts us at the level of the body, at the level of survival. So I think that's how, initially talking about the weather was actually much deeper. It didn't necessarily get named as that. People didn't say, oh man, survival, right? They didn't say this, thank God for spring because I can't take another, 30-degree day after months and months of, freezing and trying to find things to warm up, right? They didn't say that. They would just say, spring, because it's also, people, I think, were much more present and could reflect on things right in the moment of like, spring. So rather than saying, man, I suffered this winter, they may, but when it's a nice, beautiful spring day, they may just say, thank God, right? How beautiful. So it's just something I've been thinking about. And, this insight of this, newer insight about how weather used to be at the level of survival. We used to really be impacted. And also, think about the, I'm a very small scale gardener, right? I have several raised beds and I'm learning, and I get to learn because I get to also go to the grocery store and buy what I want. And so if my peppers don't flower, or for whatever reason I kill my bean plants because I don't kill it, but the weather kills it, I could still go to the grocery store and buy what I want. Lucky me. I mean, I am very, very privileged in that way and very lucky and very grateful. But think about the farmer, even 50 years ago, 100 years ago, where if you killed your tomato plants, by accident, or if a frost came 2 weeks after, the temperatures were in the 70s and killed everything, you didn't get tomatoes, you didn't get those crops. And so the weather was much more impactful in a much bigger way to people's lives. So I think that's why we talk about the weather now, all these reasons, including this sense of we get to talk about the weather. We get to just kind of go, wow, a storm is coming while we're safe inside our houses. A storm is coming and oh man, we're gonna get 3 feet of snow. And, we're kind of like freaking out, but on some level, it's also kind of this sense like I want to say mastery. I want to say, you know, we get to observe the weather and know that we're going to be relatively safe. For the most part, I'm obviously not covering all bases because, people have tornadoes, actual tornadoes come rip out their houses. So I'm obviously not talking about that. But maybe that's also in the backs of our minds too, that when we talk about what a beautiful spring day it is, we're also saying, thank God there's no tornado, or like, you know what I mean? Like that sense of we get to enjoy that moment because it's not guaranteed that there won't be a tornado next week, you know. So here are some of my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed them. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.